Pfizer has submitted data to the FDA seeking approval for its vaccination for children ages 5 to 11. Pfizer announced last month that in trials, which studied the effects of its two-dose regimen in over 2,000 young children, its vaccine was not only safe, it promoted a robust immune response against COVID-19.
So the FDA is expected to take several weeks to review the data and come to a decision. We have new Hill-HarrisX data on vaccine mandates for both adults and children. Let's take a look. The poll found 48% of voters support vaccine mandates for both adults and children, while 42% oppose. 10% support them for adults only. Among parents, 50% support mandates for both adults and children, while 40% oppose mandates for anyone. 10% said adults only. Democrats and independents were more likely to support mandates for both adults and kids at 70 and 50% respectively. Meanwhile, 66% of GOP voters opposed mandates for anyone. Ryan, I've been convinced for a while that conservatives who feel the wind is at their back because of Biden's vaccine mandate, that felt to a lot of them like a political victory, a political gift. We can ride this wave into the midterms. This is a big deal. I just don't think that's the case. I think that puts people who see it that way as out of touch. I think a lot of the country actually is very much in favor of mandates.
Mm-hmm. Right, I get extremely uncomfortable about the idea of a mandate for kids. But,
Same.
But the data is interesting and clear that there are majorities in favor of it. And I think it reflects the desire of people to just get out of this pandemic.
Yes.
And also generally people's comfort with vaccines.
Yeah, that's true.
That they're like, you know what, they're okay. Like, and they're going to get us out of this. Whether that's true or not, that is how a majority of people feel about it. When you mandate that, say, a nurse get a vaccine, that seems to me actually quite reasonable. And the nurse is allowed to quit their job if they don't want to do it, as it looks like 1% or so, or less than 1%, are doing. When you mandate it for children, given that the illness is not severe in general among children, and a child doesn't really have a choice. It's not like the kid be like, well, you know what, I'm not going to kindergarten then. I'm going to send myself to a charter school. Like that doesn't require it, or that's not something that is within a child's ability. And at the same time, if everybody gets vaccinated as an adult, then we don't really have to worry as much about children, because the problem with children getting infected was never really that the children themselves were going to suffer from it. It was that they're going to spread it to other people who will then suffer. But if everybody else is vaccinated, then that's not as much of a problem. But the data is clear. People are like, you know what? Just do it.
Yeah.
Let's just get this over with and be done with it.
No, I mean, I'm uncomfortable with mandates sort of in general, especially for children. But I think it's very interesting because we lose. There has been kind of a victory for the Biden administration, for the federal government, for the CDC, in that we have I think close to 70% of people in this country of adults who have gotten at least one dose of the vaccine. That's like a huge rate of comfortability majority. And the problem is with vaccines, of course, you need more than 70% to hit that rate where the CDC and the Biden administration says, okay, life can go back to normal. But that means 70% of adults have felt comfortable enough to take one dose of the shot. In this climate, this like polarized, difficult climate, that's a pretty high number. And so you then have to say, what is the threshold for being good enough before we start then trickling down vaccines for children? But it does, I think, to your point, really reflect widespread comfortability, more so than I think you see reflected in conservative media.
Right.
And actually even widespread comfortability with mandates, again, which I disagree with, but that's more than I think is reflected on the right now.
Right. If you only watch conservative media or some YouTube channels that are apparently going to get cracked down on by YouTube now, you're going to look at those numbers and be like, this is fake.
Yep.
And you're going to be then going through the data, trying to figure out ways that you can unskew the poll. Be like, oh, well, they only interviewed this many people, and these people didn't answer this poll. You're just not going to want to believe that the bubble that you live in is not the one that represents the entire rest of the country.
I think the pandemic sadly acclimated people. It was part of a gradual acclimation, but it was a big part of what acclimated people to less freedom. I think we're getting more and more comfortable and actually more and more desiring of federal government sort of intervention in our personal lives. I think the pandemic was a really big part of this. But I think to deny it and to act as though the country is like broadly...
Right. Doesn't mean it's a good thing, but it's good to recognize what the objective reality is that you're encountering with the rest of your fellow community.
100%.
If you're going to try to talk them out of it, you got to understand what they believe in.
Right. No, I think more and more people are comfortable with the idea of the nanny state. I think the pandemic was a big part of that change or that shift. But thanks so much for watching What America's Thinking. We will see you next time.